And welcome, sports fans, to today's roundtable. And glad you joined us on this January morning, here Saturday morning, for the roundtable. We're well into the second half of I wouldn't say it's the second half, but the 2016 half of the high school basketball season. And it's been fun so far. I tell you, it's been very competitive for the first handful of games of the season, especially heading into January. Now we're getting into some conference matchups that have been taking place over the last week. And this last week was pretty much the first week from the Christmas tournament action that we saw just before the year turned. So some very competitive basketball this week. We're going to talk about some matchups that took place this week and also last night. And it's getting exciting out there with the games that are taking place, and very competitive in these conferences going forward. So we'll talk about that. Also, we're going to preview some college football and NFL football taking place this weekend and into Monday. Some big games over the weekend, some playoff football, as well as some local stories going on with high school basketball. We're going to get into those in just a moment. But also Hoops for Hope that Bernie is hosting for former basketball standout and alum Shawn Green. They're having a big night for him coming up later this month. We're going to talk about that as well. You'll certainly want to get involved with if you certainly can. And we'll talk about that Hoops for Hope coming up later this month in Bernie. So a lot to get to today, but it's a lot of competitive basketball for the area over this last week. And let's go ahead and touch on some games that took place last night in the area, starting off with the Advance and Bernie matchup, Stoddard County matchup last night that we brought to you live right here on YHC, and it was Advance defeating Bernie 83-67. Impressive victory for the Advance Hornets last night, and we got some highlights of that game from last night, so let's go to. Here we are early on, Advance with the lead, but Dalton Hobgood pulls up for three on the right side, nails it. Nate Dillinger here with a nice shot. He had a big game for the Mules last night, and here we see a nice dish from Vermillion for the easy two for the Hornets. And the Hornets pretty much had the lead for the whole game here, as we saw Dawson Mayo have a big second quarter. I believe he had 12 just in the second quarter. He really took it over for the Hornets there in the first half. As we see here, a nice fall-away jumper to his left in the paint. Big night for Mayo, as we see here into the second half. Three-pointer in the corner, good. And here Nate Dillinger having a nice night, a three-pointer on the right side. And here Alex Guzman dishes off to Dillinger for a three in the corner again. And here, nice sequence here for the Advance Hornets. Nice rebound, dish down to Vermillion for the easy bucket. And that did it from Bernie last night, 83-67. The Advance Hornets advance with that victory over Bernie. Advance, one of these Class 1 teams to look out for this year. They made it all the way to the Class 1 Final Four last year, and I think they come away with third place last year. Bring back a very competitive team again this year, looking to make a great run once again this year. And also in the Stoddard County Conference, they're right there in the mix as well for that Stoddard County Conference. So we're going to talk more about the Stoddard County Conference, how it's looking right now going forward in our next segment. But nice game that we brought to you last night. We'll talk a little bit more about those replays going forward. But Advance looking really good. Bernie, they're an improving team. You can see they stayed competitive last night. They even made a run and got it close to about 4 or 5 points, and then Advance made a run to cushion their lead, but it didn't get out of hand for Bernie. It was certainly one of those games that it could have been a 30-plus point victory for Advance, but Bernie stayed tough in that fourth quarter, and they converted offensively to basically play even with Advance there in that fourth quarter. So it didn't get too far away from them. They were competitive, but just coming up a bit short last night to the Advance Hornets. So it's a young Bernie team. I think by the end of the year, you're going to see them play their best ball once they have a little bit more experience on the court. Not a whole lot of varsity experience on the court for the Bernie Mules this season. So look for Bernie to be playing their best ball probably by February, because got a young group out there, but certainly playing better as the season has gone on. And take a look at some other games from last night. Woodland over Dexter decisively, 75-48. These Woodland Cardinals just like last year, making some waves in the Stoddard County Conference. Decisive victory over Dexter. Dexter having a disappointing week this week. They lost Tuesday night to Perryville pretty decisively. It was a double-digit loss to Perryville on their home court, and then Woodland last night in Woodland. So, tough loss for Dexter. I really thought they were going to come out playing well for 2016, coming off that good run in the Bloomfield Christmas tournament, making it to the finals, but just not making the best, taking the best step forward here in 2016 are the Bearcats. But these Woodland Cardinals, they're no slouch. They're one of the top teams in the Stoddard County. Some big guys there, with Zach Beal coming back, also another big kid there in the mix. The Woodland Cardinals forced to be reckoned with this year, especially in that Stoddard County Conference. See how that plays out going forward, but a very competitive team there in Woodland. And another games from last night, Gideon over Southland in the Tri-County Conference, 61-31. Gideon rolls in that victory over Southland, and Gideon looking good so far this year. Also, we have Neelyville over Naylor, 57-45 out in the Ozark Foothills Conference. And also we have Sikeston over Charleston, 81-62. Decisive victory for the Sikeston Bulldogs. And what a team they've got this year. That seems like they've got it all. Very competitive, very impressive team. The Sikeston Bulldogs this year. We're going to have another little segment on them a little later. Talk about that team they've got there in Sikeston this year. But that's the second time they've matched up with Charleston. They played them in the SEMO Conference Tournament Championship earlier on this year in the opening 2 weeks of the season. Defeated Sikeston worse than they did last night, but a little bit more competitive last night, but in the end, too much Sikeston Bulldogs for the Blue Jays. And also we have from last night, Zalma over Delta, 73-21. Decisive victory for Delta. Also, looking ahead, we've got Kelly over Jefferson of Festus, 72-55. The Kelly Eagles with that impressive victory last night. Also, we have Malden over New Madrid County Central, 59-49. A nice victory for the Malden Green Wave last night. They've had an impressive week, which we'll talk about in our next segment. The Malden Green Wave off to a great start here for 2016. We'll talk about that just coming up in a bit. And also from last night, we've got Bell City over Richland, 73-44. Bell City getting that Stoddard County victory over Richland. Also from last night, Bloomfield over East Prairie, 61-50. Big win for the Bloomfield Wildcats last night, and they honored Noah Vandiver last night for scoring his 1,000th point. I believe that was earlier in the year, but a nice year for Noah Vandiver. He's had a good career there at Bloomfield, playing at the varsity level, I believe, ever since his sophomore year. He's been a big player for the Bloomfield Wildcats. Honored him last night for scoring his 1,000th point this season. Makes it even better with a victory last night over East Prairie. So congratulations to Noah Vandiver of Bloomfield. And also from last night, Doniphan over Twin Rivers, 67-53. Nice victory for the Doniphan Dons and the Ozark Foothills Conference out there. And also from last night, Saxony Lutheran over Oran, 63-39. Saxony Lutheran, very impressive team. Nice victory last night over Oran. Moved the record up to 13-1. Their only loss coming in the Bloomfield Christmas tournament to Kennett. And I know last week and in that Christmas tournament, talking about Saxony Lutheran being one of those upcoming teams here in 2016. And look out for the Crusaders, certainly this year in Class 3. And also from last night, Scott City over Chaffee, 79-39. And also we have Scott County Central over Oak Ridge, big 76-37. The Scott County Central Braves roll over Oak Ridge last night. And those were the games from last night in the area. Very competitive games, as you saw there, and some storylines are starting to develop for the remainder of this season and how these conferences are going to line up, and we're going to talk about more of that in our next segment, so stick around for that coming up. But we want to give you a glimpse of the replays that are coming up here on YHC. Last night's game Bernie and Advance will replay today, Saturday at noon and 6:30, and also Sunday afternoon at 3. And we'll also get that uploaded to SEMOsportzone.com this weekend, and you can watch it online as well. So catch that Stoddard County matchup replay today, Saturday noon and 6:30, Sunday at 3, and eventually online for this weekend. And also we had a broadcast Thursday night. We had Hawcom and Portageville Boot Hill Conference matchup there Thursday night that we brought to you, and you can catch that replaying today at 1:30 following the Bernie Advance game. Saturday 1:30, and then Saturday night at 9:30, right after the roundtable replay Saturday night at 9:30. Portageville got that victory over Hawcom, and Portageville had a nice week. Had a nice victory over Twin Rivers Tuesday night that we replayed here on YHC, and then Thursday night over Hawcom. Nice start to the 2016 year. As the Portageville Bulldogs put together so far. So that's another team to look out for in that Boot Hill Conference. They're going to be right there in the middle of the pack, but going to be a tough team to beat come the end of this year. They're starting to put things together. Not a whole lot of varsity experience on that team either. Kind of like Bernie, they're starting to put it together for the back half of this season. So certainly a team to look out for in the Boot Hill Conference are the Portageville Bulldogs. And we want to take a look at our broadcast schedule going forward, the games that we're going to bring to you coming up. And this is a big week this next week. Tuesday night, we've got Dexter at Bloomfield. We're going to bring that live to you from Bloomfield, so look forward to that. It's going to be a big matchup. Bloomfield's going to look to avenge that loss they took to Dexter in the quarterfinals of their Bloomfield Christmas tournament. Dexter upset Bloomfield 8 over a 1 seed. Bloomfield's struggled with Dexter over the years, especially these last few years with this group, and they're looking to get that victory over Dexter. It means big for them in that Stoddard County Conference if they can pull out that victory Tuesday night. Dexter coming off an 0-2 week this week. They're looking to get back in that win column with a win over Bloomfield Tuesday night. So look forward to that one live Tuesday night from Bloomfield, 7:30 start Tuesday night. And then Friday night, we got a big rivalry game. Bernie and Dexter, always a good one between those two. Should be a good one as it always is. Always competitive. Big rivalry game next Friday night, the 15th. 7:30 start right here on YHC and SEMOsportzone.com. Then we'll have our first girls game of the year. Park Hill Central, the defending Class 3 state champions, take on the Dexter Lady Bearcats, and that'll be the next Monday night, January 18th. We'll bring that one live to you from the Bearcat Event Center in Dexter. Monday night. There that Monday night on January 18th. Should be a good one there between Park Hill Central and Dexter. So those are the games to look out for this next week going into next Monday right here on YHC. And we're going to take a quick break and be back with some storylines that come away after this week in high school basketball in the SEMO and Boot Hill area. So we'll take a break and be back with that coming up.
The Ford Holiday Sales Event going on now at Harry Blackwell Ford, Malden.
Check out these holiday savings on 2016 SE Escapes, as low as $20,148 on the web.
Here you can buy a 2015 Taurus SEL for $25,682.
Save nearly $11,000 on this F-350 Lariat, now only $51,846.
From all of us at Harry Blackwell Ford in Malden, Merry Christmas!
Deposit your check here or here or even there. Deposit your check wherever you are with First Midwest Bank's new mobile deposit. Just tap, snap, deposit. It's that simple. New mobile deposit from First Midwest Bank, serving the communities we call home.
The area's fastest internet just got faster. Introducing 100 meg internet, now available from New Wave. With 100 meg, there's nothing you can't do. Browse better, stream more, power every device. This is lightning fast internet designed to fit your family's needs. It's brand new and it's the fastest game in town. Get 100 meg internet from New Wave, your local provider of the speed you need. Call 1-888-8-NEW-WAVE today.
And welcome back, and now we're going to talk about some storylines in high school basketball after this weekend. First, taking a look at the Malden Green Wave. What a week they had, going 3-0 this week in some big games. Some of their most competitive and toughest games came this week in their schedule. Tuesday night had a big win over Caruthersville. Tuesday night, the Malden Green Wave defeating Caruthersville in overtime by, I think, 2 points. I think it was 1 point. The Malden Green Wave defeated the Caruthersville Tigers. Big win for them in the Boot Hill Conference earlier in the week on Tuesday. And then later on Thursday night, just a few nights ago, they defeated South Pemiscot and held them to only maybe, I think it was 9 points in the second half. A big night for the Malden Green Wave Thursday night as they defeated South Pemiscot, which I was big on South Pemiscot. If you remember our last roundtables heading into the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament, they were my pick to win the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament this year. But they've really struggled pretty much during that tournament and since. Just haven't been the same team, South Pemiscot, but Malden really turned it on. As soon as 2016 hit, they flipped the switch. I thought they played pretty fair in the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament, probably not to their potential. Really struggled in some games there with Dexter and Saxony Lutheran late in that tournament. Come away with fourth place, but didn't think they played their best ball in that tournament. They've had a great week to open up 2016, especially for conference play. Caruthersville, South Pemiscot, Tuesday and Thursday night with victories. They're looking really good in the Boot Hill Conference right now. And then last night, that victory over New Madrid County Central. New Madrid's had a pretty good year this year. They were expected to really, I would say, come back to the pack, but a lot of seniors, they graduated last year. And coming back with a smaller and younger team this year, they've played well for the most part based on their expectations coming in. And Malden getting a nice victory over the Eagles last night. So going 3-0 against Caruthersville, South Pemiscot, New Madrid County Central, very, I would say, high octane, athletic teams that play a very fast pace of ball. And Malden going 3-0 in that stretch, pretty impressive. Especially coming off probably a disappointing ending to their Christmas tournament there in Bloomfield, going 3-0 over Caruthersville, South Pemiscot, and New Madrid County Central. And especially playing South Pemiscot and New Madrid County Central back-to-back nights, not easy, especially playing with the tempo that they play with. They're with South Pem and New Madrid County Central. So hats off to Malden this week for going 3-0, really turning some heads with the way they've started this 2016 season. And look for them to make some noise in Class 3 and also in that Boot Hill Conference. I think right now they're probably setting atop. I think they are setting atop that Boot Hill Conference right now with those impressive victories over Caruthersville and South Pemiscot. And if you looked at our schedule, we do have a game with Malden and Hayti. Malden at Hayti on the 19th, January 19th, in a few weeks. That game right there will probably, at this point, decide the top seed in that Boot Hill Conference tournament that will be played in Hayti later on this year. So that'll be a big Boot Hill Conference matchup there with Malden and Hayti in a few weeks. But big week for the Malden Green Wave. Off to a great start for 2016. Certainly Coach Andrew Halford got them on the right track to start this new year. So look out for those Green Wave. Looking really good so far in this new year. And also, let's take a look at that Woodland over Dexter victory. I thought this really shook up the Stoddard County Conference, Stoddard County Activities Association. And, Woodland right there, probably one of the top couple teams in the Stoddard County right now with impressive victories so far this year. I thought Dexter, if they put some wins together to start this year, going into that Tuesday game with Bloomfield, if they were managed to beat Bloomfield, they would be atop that Stoddard County Conference with the victories they've had already this year. They would be undefeated in conference play. Took that loss to Woodland last night, so Woodland pretty much there at the top, but Bloomfield right there as well. Bloomfield beat Advance early in the year, impressive victory by Bloomfield. So Advance has already suffered a loss in the Stoddard County Conference. So Bloomfield's there still at the top. Woodland's right there in the mix as well at the top now that they've beaten Dexter. But I really thought with Dexter coming off that impressive run in the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament, a lot of confidence. That would kind of springboard them to 2016 with some conference victories and a big match up there with Bloomfield. If they were to actually beat Bloomfield, they would be looking good for that seeding later on, come the Stoddard County Conference tournament. But they took that loss to Woodland last night. Now it's pretty much Woodland and Bloomfield battling for that top spot in the Stoddard County Conference at this point. But it's going to be a competitive conference this year. It was last year. It's going to be a lot like last year. You've probably got 4 teams that are going to mix it up for that potential Stoddard County tournament victory come later on this year. The Stoddard County tournament is in Dexter this year, if that makes any difference. But it will be in Dexter. You'll probably see right there in the mix Bloomfield, Woodland, also Dexter and Advance are probably going to be your 4 teams. But you can't count out teams that are going to be right there in the mix. Bernie, they've had a rough year, but I tell you, by the end of this year, they could give some teams fits there in the early rounds, right there in the middle of the pack. You'll have to look out for them later on in the year. They're going to be a team to be reckoned with, but 4 teams very capable of pulling out the Stoddard County Conference tournament this year. And those first rounds, those top couple seeds will make a big difference. You don't want to play 3 tough games heading up to that championship game, and especially you don't want to be any tough games early on where you're playing in overtime and playing some of those back-to-back nights. Makes it tough in those conference tournaments when you're playing back-to-back nights. Certainly don't want to be going into overtime and playing into those back-to-back nights with overtime games. So I thought that game last night was big for the Woodland Cardinals, sets them atop of that conference, and Dexter going to have to kind of fight their way back up into that conference. Got some tough games coming ahead, Bloomfield and Bernie this week. We'll see what happens, but I think that really made the Stoddard County Conference that much more interesting as it already was for Stoddard County. So we'll see how it plays out going forward. And also, let's talk about the Sikeston Bulldogs. What a season they've gotten off to and haven't been really tested, it doesn't seem like, this year. And begs the question, with a dominant season they've come up with already, will Sikeston go undefeated? And I tell you, this team, looking at their schedule, they run through the St. Dominic Christmas Tournament, 3 games straight there, and a decisive victory over Charleston this week. The SEMO Conference is tough. It is competitive. It's certainly not as deep or competitive as it was last year, as pretty much it went about 6 teams deep last year. But this year, not as much parity. You got pretty much Sikeston, and then the rest. Sikeston's head and shoulders above everyone else. They got that victory over Charleston last night. Potential tough games with some teams that can match up with them well. Poplar Bluff could match up with them well, but they defeated Poplar Bluff earlier in that year pretty handily, I believe. And Jackson right there. Jackson's always going to be right there in the mix with the SEMO Conference. They could give them a game. Notre Dame, pretty young team this year with Notre Dame. They don't really match up well with the Bulldogs this year. New Madrid County Central still down the way for the Bulldogs. If they take a loss, I think it's going to be in this SEMO Conference, but I just don't see anybody really matching up well with them this year. They've really dominated the scene in the SEMO Conference and the tournament and so far in the regular season. They do have a game at Carbondale that I can't speak to what Carbondale has this year. They're typically pretty strong over there in Southern Illinois at Carbondale. That could be a game that they could be tested at Carbondale off their home floor there in Sikeston. We'll see how that plays out, but I've looked at their schedule. They're late in the year. They're going to play some smaller schools. They ended up with schools like Bernie and a couple others. I don't think they're going to really be tested in their last 2 or 3 games of the regular season, and that's typically probably the weaker part of their schedule there in the last week or 2. But if it doesn't come from anyone outside the SEMO Conference. At this point, unless there's always any given night that a team just doesn't have it. But with the way this team plays defense, and I think that's the X factor with the Bulldogs. You can have an off night shooting and really make up for it with your defense, and a team like Sikeston can do that. If they have an off night shooting, they make up for it with layups and forcing turnovers as they do in their full court press and able to trap in the half court. A team like Sikeston can't afford to have an off night shooting because they can force those turnovers and just make it so difficult for you defensively that they'll make their own easy buckets in any game going up against any team. So I think this Sikeston team has a very good chance of going undefeated in the regular season. Certainly when you get into the state tournament in Class 4, it'll get competitive as you get into that potential probably quarterfinal round. I think this team's got at least a quarterfinal round in them this year. I don't think any team up north, that neighboring district up there in the Potosi area up there, I don't think they'll match up well with the Bulldogs. And usually that matchup doesn't match up well with this Class 1 or Class 4 District 1 winner coming out of Class 4 here in Southeast Missouri. They typically roll past that sectional round for the most part. But I think if they can get past their district, I think they've got at least a quarterfinal round in them where they'll get into some St. Louis teams up there in that quarterfinal round. But I've talked to some people, especially David Jenkins from the Standard Democrat over there, Sikeston paper. He thinks this team is probably right up there with the last undefeated team they had. I believe that was back in 2010. I think that was 2010. They went undefeated and won the Class 4 state championship. And he thinks they're right up there with them. Probably their best team since that team, if they're not all up there already. But they're got some young talent on that team. Fred Thatch, only a sophomore, leading the way for them, but some other talent mixed in there as well, and some very, very good talent at pretty much every class level for the Sikeston Bulldogs. But I think they've got an undefeated regular season in them. I would count on them going undefeated this year. The question's there, and I'll pretty much say that Sikeston's probably headed for an undefeated regular season, and what a season it could be if they could run the table. But that Final Four is going to be tough. That Class 4 classification, it's tough. You get into up teams up there with I know St. Francis Borgia is always there in the mix in Class 4. Also got like Ozark. Actually, I think Ozark might be up around Class 5 by now. That's a growing. I think that's the fastest growing school in the state. But you got like Nixa there in the mix. Very tough classification there in Class 4. We'll see how it plays out going forward. But Sikeston certainly in the discussion of having an undefeated season this year. Certainly head and shoulders above the rest of Southeast Missouri this season. And, there was some good discussions about what's taking place here in Southeast Missouri. I thought it was a great week of high school basketball. You see Malden going on that 3-0 run, looking really good in that Boot Hill Conference. But I tell you, that Boot Hill Conference, it's been up and down this year. You kind of think, oh, South Pemiscot, I think, they're the favorite. They come out of there, and then, a team like Haytie does well, has some games they put together. And seeing Hornersville had a really good start to the season, and they suffered a big loss to Haytie earlier this week. Haytie pretty much run over the Seath Hornersville Lions this week, but Seath Hornersville is going to be right there as well. You just never know. There's so much parity this year. You can't really pin anyone down as the 1 or 2 or 3 best teams in the conference, and then you see, kind of an upset victory come along, and it just makes it a very competitive field this year in Southeast Missouri. And it's been fun to watch so far. There's been some teams that have really improved over the last year or two, making things more competitive. So we'll see how it plays out going forward. It's been fun to watch so far. We got some big games coming up here in the next couple weeks. So hopefully you'll join us along the way for some exciting high school basketball right here on YHC and SeaboldSportsZone.com. And we're going to take another break, and we're going to talk about Hoops for Hope that's coming up at Bernie High School, coming up later this month, for Bernie alum Shawn Green, and we're going to talk about that and some big playoff football games coming up this weekend, so don't go away.
You just can't do it anymore, but you want to stay in your own home. Bales is the place to call. Bales is committed to helping people like you to maintain your independence and live your life on your terms with dignity. Bales can help with your family getting paid for taking care of you. There is no need to live anywhere but our own home with Boot Hill Area Independent Living Services there to help. Just call 888-449-0949 or stop by 719 Tico Road in Kennett to find out more. Bales, Boot Hill Area Independent Living Services, serving Dunklin, New Madrid, Pemiscot, and Stoddard counties.
What is your emergency? Need assistance at County Road 61 and Highway 9. Help is on its way.
Clear!
There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
The competitive edge. It's the edge that sets you apart from your competition. Every business needs it. Now every business can get it. Partner with Advanced Business Solutions and give your business the competitive edge. Advanced Business Solutions, delivered by New Wave, offers scalable fiber optic-based internet solutions to fit your needs. Now you can download without the wait on a network designed for you. Call Advanced Business Solutions and get the competitive edge for as low as $39.99 per month.
And welcome back, and now we're going to take a look at Hoops for Hope that Bernie is hosting for Shawn Green. Shawn Green's former basketball standout for the Bernie Mules in the early 90s, and they're having a benefit for him to honor him and to help fundraise for the cancer that he's been fighting over a number of years. And certainly a good time to get involved with the Bernie schools. If you're in the Bernie community, it's a great time to get involved with this Hoops for Hope coming up later this month for Shawn Green. And Shawn Green, if you've been a basketball fan, certainly in the Stoddard County area or in the Boot Hill in general, you'll certainly remember Shawn Green from his days in the early 90s. The Bernie Mules, very competitive team in the early 90s, and they always butted up with the Portersville Bulldogs there when they had their four straight state championship run from 91 to 94. They were right there in the mix there, and some have always said that, even I've always said that the state championship there in the early 90s took place here in southeast Missouri with the Bernie Mules and the Portersville Bulldogs. And, the Bernie Mules have got second place banners in their gymnasium throughout. Never won that state championship, but they've got the second place, and you might as well put second place up there for the early 90s when they run up against Portageville when they ran on to the state championship in those early 90s. But very impressive basketball player, Shawn Green, and his twin brother. They're the Green Twins. That's how you always remember the Green Twins from the early 90s. Certainly a standout player in the early 90s, Shawn Green. And Bernie's putting on Hoops for Hope coming up, and we got the details for you. Let's take a look at those coming up January 22nd. It's a night of benefit and honor for Bernie alum Shawn Green on the 22nd versus Pemiscot. They'll have a fish fry from 5 until 5:30 in the school cafeteria. Tickets can be purchased for $10 from the school, or you can even purchase those at the door. And they'll have a booth available to start a college fund for Shawn and Aaron's daughter, Avery. Donations will go toward purchasing of savings bond that will help with her future college expenses. And a nice deal there, setting up that college fund for Avery going forward. And also single donations can be made on Shawn Green's behalf. Can be made to Hoops for Hope at the Bank of Advance in Dexter. You can take those by the Bank of Advance in Dexter, make those checks payable to Hoops for Hope at the Bank of Advance in Dexter. Also, you can drop those by the school to either Brad Bosch, the head coach there at Bernie, high school basketball coach at Bernie, or Christy Whitehead. She's really one of the big organizers of this Hoops for Hope event for Shawn Green. And this is sponsored by 18 for Life, a great local organization, certainly benefiting those suffering locally from cancer. It's been going on for many years, headed up by Scott Cruz and his crew with 18 for Life. A great event for a great cause for Shawn Green coming up on January 22nd versus Pemiscot, having a fish fry, also donations on the behalf of Shawn and Aaron's daughter Avery, college fund, and also great way to donate to help out with Shawn Green's fight. I believe it's brain cancer that he has, and he's fighting hard and undergoing numerous treatments, and certainly will help in his fight with cancer going forward. So if you can get involved, certainly get involved to help out. And 18 for Life, enough can't be said of what the work they've done over many years and the money they've raised to help go towards local people fighting cancer. That's what's great about 18 for Life. You donate local, it stays local. It really goes towards helping these families and their need with traveling expenses. As there's expense in itself just coming up with the payments for the treatment, but they are certainly helping the families out through that process of continuing their fight against cancer. So get involved if you can. It's a great way to get involved and help a local alum in Bernie, Shawn Green. It'll certainly be appreciated. So good luck to Hoops for Hope going forward there in Bernie. And let's take a look at some college and football. College and NFL football taking place this weekend. Big weekend of football for the college and NFL ranks. First with college football, that national championship game. Second-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the top-ranked Clemson Tigers. Monday night game, 7:30 start on ESPN, and that'll be a big matchup. I know Alabama's going to be the favorite going in, but Clemson's going to be right there. Undefeated season, pretty good offense that can match up with that Alabama defense. And, well, the way Alabama looked in that semifinal game, you would just pretty much punch Alabama to that national championship game with Nick Saban. But these Clemson Tigers have the team, and they've got the makeup of their offense. I think that give Alabama fits. Watson, their quarterback, he's mobile enough to where he can, pick up those tough 4 or 5 yards to get first downs. And if there's been anything that Alabama struggled with over the years is a mobile quarterback. You can think back to the times with Johnny Manziel and the Texas A&M Aggies. They lost to Texas A&M on their home field against Manziel and the Aggies one year, and then the next year went to Texas A&M and they went to the wire. And Johnny Manziel had a big game. So Clemson's got the makeup, with that mobile quarterback. He can get out of the pocket, make some plays on the run with his arm, and also keep picking up some of those key third and 4, 3rd and 5 downs that are hard to come up with those conversions. I think that he can help extend those drives, move the ball against that Crimson Tide defense, and make it competitive. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I expect Alabama to come out on top, but I'm not expecting the runaway victory that some may expect over the Tigers. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a competitive game. Certainly worth watching Monday night on ESPN. And ESPN this year coming up with, I think they've got maybe, I don't know how many broadcasts they're coming up with. New double-digit broadcasts, over 10 broadcasts that you can catch on the different networks, ESPN, or the traditional broadcast will be on ESPN, but on ESPN2, ESPNU, they're going to have all kinds of different broadcasts. I think you're going to have on some channels kind of the hometown radio calls along with the broadcast, and then you can have one with no commentary at all. It's just basically the game and the crowd noise. You can watch it without commentary. And even online on their ESPN3, they're going to have a couple different feeds. So if you got the ESPN package, got all those channels, you'll be able to take advantage of that, see what they've got to offer. So mixes it up for all the college football fans coming up for the national championship. So we'll see what takes place Monday night on ESPN in Glendale, Arizona. It's in Glendale, Arizona for this year. Typically for the Fiesta Bowl there, but I don't think it's called the Fiesta Bowl. I don't know. I think they're calling it the National Championship, but it's basically the Fiesta Bowl for this year. And let's take a look at the NFL playoffs getting underway today. Big time. I'd say it's my favorite part of the year. NFL playoffs, AFC wildcard, both on Saturday today. You got the Chiefs at the Texans in Houston. That's today's start, Saturday start at 3:20 on ESPN. And then you got the Steelers at the Bengals. That NFC North matchup, that'll be the third time they've played this year. That's tonight, Saturday night at 7:15 on CBS. Two big games there. The winners advancing on to the divisional round next week. And depending on who wins, the lower seed will be taking on the top-seeded Denver Broncos in Denver. And the lower seed will be taking on the New England Patriots in New England. They're in Foxborough next weekend. So say if the top seeds win, such as the Texans and the Bengals, the Texans would take on the Denver Broncos, and the Bengals would take on the Patriots. But if those lower seed teams win, Chiefs and Steelers, you would see the Chiefs go to take on the Denver Broncos, and the Steelers take on the New England Patriots. So we'll see how that plays out this weekend or today. We'll have the AFC divisional set for next weekend after this Saturday, after today. So we'll see how that plays out in the AFC wild card for today. To me personally, I think it's going to be the Chiefs, and I'm going to say the Chiefs and the Steelers come out today. I think the Texans just won't have enough offensively, and Chiefs will have just enough, as they seem to have over the last couple of months. They've been on a nice streak. I think they went 10 games straight to finish out the season, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the Chiefs and Steelers advance. You'll see the Chiefs and the Patriots, and then the Steelers and the Broncos. So, but we'll see how it plays out. But that's my prediction for Saturday's games. And then you've got the NFC wild card. The Seahawks at the Vikings. That'll be a Sunday start at 12:05 on NBC. And then Sunday afternoon, you got the Packers at the Redskins. Sunday afternoon, 3:40 on Fox. And Seahawks are probably the hottest team, maybe other than the Chiefs, going into this postseason. But, boy, the Seahawks are hitting on all cylinders. Their defense has returned. They struggled early on with their defense. A lot of miscommunication. If you can remember Dan Quinn, their defensive coordinator the last number of years, he took the head coaching job in Atlanta. So you could probably expect some transition with this team, getting on the same page with their coordinator. You saw a lot of miscommunication earlier in the year, but they've really put it together this last half of the year. They ended up with the best team defense in regards to points per game allowed. I think they allowed maybe 16, 17 points a game, but nonetheless it was the best defense in the league based on points per game allowed. So, that defense has returned there with the Legion of Boom, and also that offense has really opened up. Russell Wilson having an amazing second half of the year. I think in the second half he had 24 touchdowns and only a couple interceptions. Probably the hottest quarterback coming into these playoffs this year. So, if that offense is clicking along with that defense, I think they're the most dangerous team. And certainly in the NFC, but I think they're the most dangerous team coming in to these NFL playoffs. I think right now you got to look at them making their third straight Super Bowl, looking for their second Super Bowl title in 3 years. I think they're the hottest team right now, the most dangerous team heading into these playoffs. But Minnesota's got them on their home field. It's going to be sub-zero temperatures. I think they're expecting 4 degrees at kickoff for tomorrow, so we'll see. It's got a chance to be in the negatives up there in Minnesota. Minnesota playing outdoors, waiting on their new dome to be built. Here the last year and this year, they've played in the University of Minnesota Stadium where the Gophers play, and it's outdoors. And so it's going to be tough for Seattle, but Seattle's used to some cold temperatures. Russell Wilson's played pretty well in those cold temperature games, so it's going to be competitive. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be quite cold up there in Minneapolis for this weekend. So that's going to be fun to watch, the Seahawks and the Vikings Sunday afternoon. And also that late Sunday afternoon game, the Packers at the Redskins. The Packers have just kind of wandered into the playoffs, it seems like, this year. They've really struggled down the stretch. Redskins coming up with an impressive playoff run this year, winning the NFC East behind Kirk Cousins. He's also a great quarterback that's played great the second half of the year. And, the Packers, or the Redskins, just haven't beat that kind of playoff caliber team this year. They just really haven't come up with a very impressive victory. You look at their schedule. They've beat some NFC East teams. They've beat some teams that are pretty mediocre, but they haven't had that kind of signature win that really inspires confidence in the playoffs. And a win over the Packers would do that, but this Packers team just isn't what we've seen over the last few years, especially with their offense. That loss of Jordy Nelson, I think, really exposed the receiving core of this team with the Packers. Just not very dynamic. They don't have the great ability of getting open down the field, and you're not seeing a lot of big plays out of the Packers this year. They're just pretty much just struggling it up the field, running the ball with Starks and Eddie Lacy, trying to mix it in with some short passes, trying to get some plays down the field, but just not a very dynamic offense from the Packers this season. And I expect the Redskins to pull it out. I think they're going to pull it out in front of a hometown crowd that's really excited for this Redskins team. And I think the Packers on the road just haven't been that good this year, and I think they're going to struggle. And I think the Redskins are going to pull it out. I think the Packers are going to be favorites in the game. I didn't see the line coming into today's show, but I think they're probably going to be picked as favorites. But I think Redskins will pull it out, and the Seahawks going on the road to defeat the Vikings as well. So I expect the the Seahawks and the Redskins to advance after this weekend. And then you got your top two seeds in the conference. You've got the Carolina Panthers with the number 1 seed, finishing a very impressive 15-1 this year. And then you've got the second seed Arizona Cardinals. Took a tough loss to Seattle at home in that last week there with the number 2 seed. So if they do advance, say the Seahawks and the Redskins advance, you would see the Seahawks take on the top-seeded Carolina Panthers. The Seattle Seahawks are the 6th seed, the last seed in the NFC. So if they win, they automatically play the top seed Carolina Panthers. That'll be a big game, big divisional game there. Might as well consider that probably the NFC Championship there. But with Seattle having to go on the road throughout the playoffs, that could be the difference with them not making the Super Bowl. They've got to go 3 games on the road to make it to the Super Bowl, so that's going to be tough. But that would potentially be Carolina and Seattle. And then say if the Redskins win, as I predict, they will go on to take on the Arizona Cardinals there in Glendale. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a very, very competitive playoffs this year. There's really no team that's a runaway favorite, kind of like last year. There wasn't really any runaway favorite last year, but teams are really beating up on each other this year, it seems like. Should make for a great playoff atmosphere going forward for the next month in the NFL playoffs. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited and look forward to seeing what happens starting this weekend. And that'll pretty much wrap it up for us today. We appreciate you for tuning in for the Roundtable today, and we look forward to seeing you back with us next Saturday for another Roundtable right here from Southeast Missouri. And until then, I'm Tyler Wagner. Have yourself a great week. Take care, everyone.